Let's begin with the word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for being our Father. Thank you for loving us as your dear children. Thank you for all your gifts to us. And thank you again for making us one family in you. Blessing this time, and we thank you in Jesus' name. I have some pictures on my phone I was sharing this afternoon. A few people have some pictures of a little house on wheels that a fellow built that stayed with us. And the more I thought about it, I keep coming back to him. His name is Ron, and I just like to share some things about his story, which is a part of our story. One rainy day, I was at the church with my two girls. My wife was working on the ambulance service, and it was just the girls and I. And for some reason, I'd stayed at the church, hadn't left yet. And I'm not sure why, but the phone at the church rang before we walked out the door. Everybody else was gone. And I went back, picked it up, and there was this man on the phone wanting to know if he could get some help. What kind of help? Well, whatever we could do. Well, what's your problem? Well, his car was broke down. It seemed the seal was out on the transmission and he needed some transmission fluid. Where are you headed? Well, he didn't know. And right away I'm thinking, what is this? Who is this? And what's going on? And I thought about it a little more and I said, well, where are you? Oh, he was in Sparta, not too far away, about 13 miles, and sitting at a station. Rain's just coming down, and he says, yeah, I'm stuck. I can't get out of here. He says, my windshield wipers don't work. It won't go. And he says, and I've been sleeping in the back of this car for weeks. I'm like, okay. Well, I said, I'll see what I can do. And I was thinking, do I really want to do that? Is that the way I want to spend Sabbath afternoon? And so, but I don't have any transmissions, but I'll have to go buy some. Well, am I going to do this? And Daddy says, just plain as anything. Yeah, you need to do this. Oh, okay, here we go. Hey girls, pile in the car, here we go. We headed off to Sparta, we got some found the guy at the station, this old brown Cadillac. And got him some transmission fluid, and then I'm thinking, what really is this going to do for this guy? Really, am I going to leave him some books or what am I going to do here? How do I show him God's love? And the more I thought about it, I just really didn't know it until I heard him say something about not having eaten for days. And looked at it. Well, let's see what we can do about that. Okay, girls, we're going to see what we can do about getting this guy something to eat. Can you follow us home? So we took him home and got him something to eat. He was the weirdest duck you have ever known. Whoa! I mean, in just a little bit, I began to think, what have I done? Here's a person. Now, mind you, Keith, you were talking something about there's a place where the cortex, the
cingulate cortex,
things go past without being stopped or filtered.
Yes.
Whoa! His eyes, wherever they landed, that's what come out his mouth. I mean, just instantly. Oh, there's some neat stuff sitting on that table. That's a nice looking computer. I like that shirt you've got on. What's that apple on that thing right there? And wherever you look, wherever his eyes fell, and it wasn't all just stuff. I mean, it could be about somebody's dress or what was still visible, or it was like, ooh, uncensored across the board, just straight across the board, uncensored. And I'm like, girls, cover your ears. It wasn't foul. It was just plain, whatever was going in was totally unfiltered. I thought, where did this guy come from? How do you get like that? So I started asking him questions. Vietnam.
You forgot to tell about the meal.
Was that at the farmhouse?
You forgot to tell about the meal.
Go ahead.
You were there.
It's okay. It's just,
I've seen it many times. Ron was 49 years old, the oldest child we ever had. He came from an extremely abusive home. Believe it or not, this guy had a high IQ. But because of his damage, he was a simple-minded child.
somewhere along the line in his preteens or preteens, his real development had stopped. And we saw a challenge here that beyond anything I could ever imagine. And she wasn't at home when this started, so yeah, I was the one who was there, got us started in this. Ron came from Reform Adventist home. He went to Cedar Lake Academy.
Wow.
But he didn't graduate.
Yeah,
He didn't graduate because there was just all kinds of issues with where he was stuck emotionally. He ended up marrying a girl that came from that academy, and that marriage ended with 3 boys that when he went off to Vietnam, the girl married someone else and left no forwarding address or anything. He lost total contact with his family. He was just devastated when he come back and couldn't find it. His home was gone. It was sold. Somebody else owned it. And he was just, didn't know what to do. So he went back, signed right back up, went back to Vietnam. Well, this time they instead of in Vietnam, he went to Europe, drove a truck there for the next.
But actually,
4
to back
years.
up a bit, when he came in from Vietnam, because the attitudes back during the 60s,
Oh, yeah.
it was,
Nobody would help him.
no, he was made fun of, he was ridiculed. I mean, he was called a child killer, and it was really bad. So when he re-enlisted, and he was back in the Army, actually, to back up a bit, the guy took the test for the Air Force, aced it. Air Force thought, man, we have got us one top dude, until they talked to him.
And wouldn't take him.
Now, they realized.
He ended up in the Army, the only ones that would take him.
So anyway, here we have Ron, and we're going to be training an old dog.
Yeah.
How to have manners, how to be civil. He's sitting at the table. Hey, you see that fork there? Yeah, and you want to pick up that fork and you want to eat a few bites. You know?
He talked to everything.
Yeah.
And it talked back to him in his mind out loud. Hey, water bottle, I need a drink. Yeah, thank you, you can have a drink. I'm serious. It was, you have no idea how really, it was unreal, really, to be around this
Did
guy.
he use drugs over there?
No.
No.
Other than he got doused with Agent Orange, which I'm sure had an effect on a lot of things in his life, health-wise. But no, he never was into drugs or any of the other things that so
He was
many of the guys
severe.
got into.
People don't understand the severe abuse that he went through.
When he finally came back after his second tour, I don't know, his third time in, because the second time when he came back, he married again, and that ended, and badly, and he went back for his third tour. Came back home from that, he married again because the other girl had married someone else. He was just, I don't know how you could, if somebody was to write his story, how could write one that would be filled with more pain and more just mistreatment than what this guy received. And I didn't get all this just from Ron. Although he knew the story quite well, but it was in bits and pieces that would come out. I learned some from his relatives, some from his last wife, by whom he had 2 children, and they're in California. And I've talked with his daughter, tried to keep up with her. And his sons, unfortunately, following his daddy's footsteps. And wow, that's a road trip too. But when Ron came back the last time, he went back to driving truck because he'd been so good at that in the Army. And I'll tell you, I would have liked to have seen his truck. Everything got painted with spray paint, either red, white, and blue, or he loved yellow and red and gold. And he could take a nice looking vehicle and paint it. He tells me that his truck in the Army, that he painted extra stars on it, he painted the wheels chrome, he did all this stuff, and everybody said, "Whoa, Ron, what are you doing?" But he was such a good driver, and he was consistent in getting loads through places where they couldn't get him over in Vietnam, that they left him alone, let him paint his truck, let him fly. He had 6 or 7 American flags on every truck that he drove. All over it. And he loved to tell about one mission where he was the convoy. They would stick him in the front as the first truck because they figured if he made it through, the rest of us are going to make it through, because of course any enemy could see that truck. There's no hiding. and he tells about the time that they shot missiles at him, and he says, "I think somebody loves me and cares for me." He says, "Because the wheel got jerked out of my hand," and he says, "and I drove off into a ditch that was so deep that it was deeper than what the truck was high," and he said the bombs were just blowing up everywhere around there, but they didn't hit my truck. And he says, "Of course, I'm loaded with aviation fuel, so you know what would have happened to me." And he says, "We got the trucks out, and on we went." But for as rough a character and crazy as he seemed, he knew who his real father was, because his earthly father had let him down. His earthly father was crazy as a loon. And I got this from other family members as well as Ron, listening to him. Ron never said his dad was crazy. But listening to him, you know that he had to be. If he would tear the house down and pile it on top of the car, move it carload at a time from one property to another, and put it back up, and sleep under the pile of lumber while he was working on it, and then, because he didn't like the neighbors, tear it down, move it again to somewhere else that wasn't his property, find out he couldn't stay there, tear it down. I'm like, what kind of person would do that kind of thing and make his family sleep out on the ground under pieces of lumber at night? That's just one. But there was a whole bunch of things that he'd tell me about his dad and then his other relatives. And he come from that kind of a background.
My question is, how does a guy like that get married? Like, what is she thinking?
Like Ron? What does the girl see in that?
I wondered that myself. But the other thing too, Ron had a very simple faith in Jesus.
He did.
And when he was over in Vietnam, it didn't take the soldiers long to learn that this guy may be a weird duck,
But
So
somebody's
watching over
out for
him.
him.
And he got to where that wherever there was action, people wanted to be around Ron because Ron wasn't going to get killed.
They would line their trucks in behind. Really would. And, yeah, 12 years of service and still no recognition when he came back here for it and mistreated terribly. Well, anyway, when he came back the last time and found that he'd lost that family too, there was, the grandparents were taking care of the kids, and the wife didn't want anything to do with him. He decided he'd just stay driving truck and provide for his kids. Well, the state of California stepped in, unbeknownst to Ron, and began to pay the grandparents to care for the kids. Ron never knew that until he had been with us for a couple years and got a letter from California over that. They owed $13,000 child support. When he died, he owed $57,000 according to the state of California. And he had paid on it. As soon as he found out about it, he made payments every other week to the state of California. But anyway, that's one of those things that just you wonder about. Both the kids were of age by that time, but yet they still did that to him. And it kept him from getting another good job. Nobody would hire him with the restrictions that the state of California put on him. And so he ended up doing scrap metal or whatever he could do. But as Ron stayed with us and we continued to just really, Ron, you can't talk like that around people. They don't understand. You have to think about what you're saying before it comes out your mouth. Now, to say that to most people, they'd probably be offended or, wow, so what? But Ron never took offense when he and I would talk about things like that, and he would seriously try. And it wasn't all that long. Well, it seemed like forever to some people who weren't around him all the time. But I watched the progress, and so did my wife, and it wasn't all that long before Ron began to watch what came out of his mouth, and it began to be where he could talk to you without making a comment if he thought your dress was too low-necked or whatever else was going through his mind at the time, perhaps. He just kept growing, developed a love for spirit prophecy, and spent a lot of time reading it. He began to, in his little houses, whatever he built to live in, he wouldn't live in the house with us. He was a creature that needed to be outside of four walls. In a vehicle was okay, but if it was four walls, no.
He always came in the house to eat, though.
Yeah, he would.
The first birthday he had with us, I baked him a cake. He cried. He had never had a birthday cake. He was 50 years old.
Wow.
We have no concept of what some people have been through. The neglect. And what a lot of people don't understand, being violated sexually is horrible. And Ron was. But most people don't understand that rejection is actually worse than that.
Wow.
And he had rejection from childhood clear on up.
For 11 years, he slept in vehicles and just avoided people because of the way he was treated coming back from Vietnam. And so when I found him in that Cadillac that day, and I'm like, this guy's nuts. But Daddy said, no, he's somebody that really needs help, and you need to help him. I said, okay, went at it. And I had to do it by faith because this was not going to be easy, I could tell. But we saw the rewards of that.
Don't tell about the end, that's too emotional.
I have to. they're in the hospital, VA hospital in Ohio. This was after over a year off and on searching, trying to find him when he no longer, I wasn't getting phone calls, I wasn't getting a letter with his tie. He loved to support our little church there in Spencer. He was very faithful, trusted the Lord in so many ways. Always, when he'd come in, he wanted the box of literature to take with him before he went back out traveling around.
Had he gone up north for a job?
He'd gone north to Ohio. Supposedly there was a travel trailer up there somebody was going to give him. And the camper he was in, he said, hey, he could do something a little bigger. And okay. But anyway, when I didn't hear from him, I knew something was wrong. And I started trying to find out. I didn't get anywhere, HEPA laws and all that. It was just, I wasn't finding out anything. I made several trips to Ohio, and I finally pinned down an area where I had talked with people, and oh yeah, I know who that guy. Oh yeah, he was here. He was borrowing my tools for this, or he was that, or he was asking for help to fix this, and seems the timing chain had gone out in the truck at this one town, and I talked with several places in that town that, yeah, they knew who I was describing, all right, he'd been there. But one of them said they thought they'd heard he'd been picked up by an ambulance. So I figured, okay, if that's the case, his truck has to be somewhere around here. But I couldn't find it that trip. I went back again later, and I said, Daddy, I've got to know how to find him because I'm not getting there. And I came to an exit on 71, and Daddy says, this exit, right here. And I'm like, middle of nowhere on 71, and I'm thinking, I couldn't see any houses, towns, or nothing. I'm like, that's not right. Well, maybe, I don't know. I took the exit and drove all the way into the little town, and people there, yes, they'd known about Ron. So I backtracked, going back to the interstate after I talked to all of them. And it's, when you're listening, it's just something else to have. God said, there's his truck. And I'm like, and then Angel, I just turned my head to look, and just before I passed the end of this box trailer, semi-trailer, sitting there, I saw his truck just for a second, just as I passed by this, sitting in this empty lot back in these trees. And so I backed up, turned in there, and sure enough, it was Ron's truck. There was no one around, and I stayed there for a while, trying to decide what to do. Finally, I just left a note on the truck, hoping whoever owned it, and I left again. Then the people called me later, and I found out, and I went back and was able to go through the stuff, and I realized I got from these people the date when he had been picked up by the ambulance and all that. So I kept searching. I knew he was in a VA facility somewhere, and I finally had to ask Daddy, just how do I find him, because I was getting nowhere. Call, ask about Ron Peel, didn't tell me anything because I had the loss. And Daddy said, be positive. What does that mean? Yeah, I know, I'm a negative person. I tend to see the bad side of things too easy. Okay, what does being positive really mean in this situation? Thought about it. I looked at my list of numbers. I called the place. I said, I want to talk to Ron Peel. Oh, yes, sir. Just a minute. We're sorry, he's not here. He's been transferred to another facility. And that would be? I'm sorry, we can't tell you, sir. Okay. So on to the next one on the list. I need to talk to Ron Peel. And they say, oh, yes, sir. Just a minute. Oh, he's not in his room. He's out in the lobby, but we'll try to get him a phone to him here in just a minute. Okay, I knew where he was. And I got to talk to him. And he was so excited. So I got to go visit him, but I couldn't get him out of there. I couldn't, there just was a mountain of paperwork, and they wouldn't release him on his own recognizance. They said he was crazy. And I thought, yeah, I know that, but I mean, that's where he was, but no, people, you just don't know Ron. If you knew Ron, you would not say he's crazy. Oh, you don't understand this guy, and they started through this list of stuff about it. And I said, I understand what you're saying, but no, what you're dealing with is somebody here who's a free spirit who needs to be outside in these walls. He can't function. He can't think straight being trapped in these walls. I said, you need to let him out of here. Oh, we can't do that. So I tried going through all the paperwork. But before I went through all the paperwork, got to where I could do anything for him, they transferred him again. Because he'd gotten sick, he had quit eating. He had decided that I must have forgotten him and wasn't going to come get him. When I finally found him again, and I went in there, they weren't going to let me even in his room. The doctor said, no, he doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have any family. He doesn't have anybody. This is not you don't know who this guy really is. I said, yes, I do. I know him better than you do. Probably better than anyone else does. No, they weren't going to let me in. I says, if you ask him, he'll let me in. Well, no, he's not talking to anybody. He's not eating. He's basically terminal. I ended up with a whole team of doctors and nurses leading me to the room.
Determined that Ron would not know Alvin.
Yeah, I could hear him talking. Hey, this guy's, this isn't the person he thinks he is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Walk into the room, the guy with the little monitor computers sitting in the corner, and one bed in there. This team goes around the foot of the bed, and I walk up to the side of the bed. I touch him on his shoulder because he got his eyes closed. I say, Ron. His eyes lit up. He sat up, and he said, he looked at me and he said, this guy, this is my friend. Those doctors they all started jabbering amongst themselves, and I wasn't really hearing what they were saying except something about, oh, I guess he does know who this is. They filed out, left me there with Ron, and I talked to him for a while, and I told him, Ron, you just, they say you're not eating. You gotta eat. You gotta have strength. I can't get you out of here like this. They won't let me take you anywhere in this shape. He said, well, bring me some food. The nurse called for somebody. They brought him a tray of food. He sat there eating it. And some of the doctors came back in, and they're just shaking their heads. Wow, what is this? I know what it was. It's the power of love.
Amen.
But I couldn't get him out. Paperwork was just too much. By the time I got through to actually be to the point where I could be his fiduciary, as the military calls it, and could go back and have the right to ask them to let me take him regardless of whether there was a place he was transferring to, where he could go to my home. They called me in. Ron was gone.
What was really hard was that when Ron saw Alvin, he looked at me and said, you're going to get me out. You're going to get me out. You're going to take me home, aren't you? You're going to take me home.
He really believed I was going to. And I would have, but they just wouldn't let me.
And when Alvin couldn't get him out, he just gave up. He just gave up. So, but then we had another boy in our home. He was 21 years old. And he came to us knowing that he couldn't function in society. He had been so badly incested growing up as a little boy and on up. And he actually came to us and asked us if we would help him. William was so disconnected, he couldn't make the decision to go to the bathroom. I am not exaggerating.
Another person.
He would start to the bathroom and stop and come back. Start at the bathroom, come back. I mean, I'm not exaggerating.
No, he'd just stop still and just stand there. And then he'd slowly turn around. And then he'd take off walking back in the other direction. And then all of a sudden he'd just stop. Stand there and look a little bit. Puzzled look on his face. And then he'd turn around and he'd run toward the bathroom. It was to watch him, you'd say, okay, here's another crazy. This is just a different direction. But another extreme dysfunction.
Yeah, and the children would go to the window and watch him because we had an outhouse, okay? So they stand and watch him. But the thing about it was amazing. We had to work with William to go from point A to point B. We had to make that connection in his brain from point B to point C. And by doing that consistently, William became very functional. And he actually went to college. And he passed and he did well.
Great grades in college. He was 22 when he came to us.
I think he was 21.
21?
Yeah, he was 21, dear. And he left at, I think he was with us 2 years.
Yeah, 23. Yeah.
He left us at
Okay.
23.
21, he was 23 when he left. He did well in college. He became a realtor in another state. Had his own business, married, and the Lord is good. There's been a lot of success stories that people, the things that started me on thinking about the different ones I wanted to share with today were ones that other people told us we were crazy, fools, even that we were dangerous parents for subjecting our children to such people and persons as these in our home. If I'd listened to those people, Ron would have probably died in a car somewhere, still not fully understanding Jesus' love for him. But Ron learned enough to where he believed that was the only thing in life that was worth doing, was find somebody that he could share a book with them, share steps to Christ, share something that gave them a picture of the God that he knew and loved. William, what would have happened to that boy, the Lord only knows. But for him to have a functional life, enjoying life, wouldn't have been if we'd have listened to those naysayers. Those 6 children we told you a little bit about before. I had so many well-meaning people tell me, don't take those kids into your home. They'll never amount to anything. Look at where they come from. They'll always be dysfunctional, just like their parents.
No, tell them how their mother related to rain.
Rain? Extreme fear. Hide under the bed kind of fear. From a mother. And she told the kids they were going to die if they had to hide under there so they wouldn't die.
From the rain, when we had those 6 children, if it would rain, I kid you not.
They'd start screaming.
And all 6 kids would pile in bed with us.
Yeah.
And I would be hanging on one edge and I'd be hanging on the other edge. But you know, after a while, in working with them and encouraging them, we taught them the little song, "What time I am afraid, I will trust in thee," Psalm 56:3.
They to this day.
As adults, will sing that little
still
song
sing that song when
if
it
they
starts
get
to
afraid.
rain. Yeah. It's it's amazing what the power of the Word can do in a simple, small way like that. Who would think that just one little scripture could make that kind of difference?
Another thing people don't understand is that when a mama is pregnant, from 4 months on, all that mother's emotions is downloaded to this baby.
Yep.
That baby takes it on as its very own. So if that mother lives in a state of fear, that child is born with the fear at the core of its being. And I'm not exaggerating. I can give you a prime example of my sisters and I. I'm the firstborn. I was blessed that my dad was overseas in the Marines. And so my mother was under the care of my grandmother, who is a very godly woman. My granddaddy was a hellraiser. But because of my grandmother, my mother had awesome prenatal care. And so when I was born, a little girl is born neither positive nor negative. She's shaped by her environment.
Boys are born negative, just
Yes.
know that.
And so anyway, it's
Seriously.
true. And so here I am when I'm born in these loving arms of a grandmother. Now, my mother tried to breastfeed me and could not. Back then they didn't know what to do with inverted nipples, okay? And because I was drawing blood and stuff like that. And so putting me on evaporated milk, cow's milk, whatever, I ended up with colic. And so my grandmother was the one that took care of me, and that was why I wanted with my grandmother. Well, my dad came in from being overseas, and my mama gets pregnant with my sister. This is the time that my mother learns what kind of guy she married. She didn't know prior to that. She married my dad, got pregnant with me right away. Dad was gone overseas. She finds out my dad has a unreal temper. So she spends that pregnancy making sure she doesn't trigger his temper. My sister came to me and she said, "Sis, don't you wake up with fear gripping you?" No. When my mother got pregnant with my third sister, she didn't want to be pregnant. She did not, she had 4 children in 3 years and no twins. So here she is pregnant the 3rd time, and she did not want another child. To this day, my sister feels unwanted and rejected. When mother carried my 4th sister, Dad had some surgery. Mom was happy. It'll last one. The baby sister's happy-go-lucky. We carry those. God can heal us from it. But we have to have the Lord to set us free. And I forgot where else. Oh, so that's why these children had these massive fears, because this mother's whole world was fear. And when she was pregnant with them, the fears were unreasonable. We're talking about screaming, crying, just frantic. They would go into a number 10 in fear, just paralyzed.
To this day, the kid's mother, if there's a severe storm coming through, she'll still call me. "Hey, do you know there's a storm coming through? Are you all in a safe place?" She's in a panic still.
Can I come to your
Hasn't
house?
changed. Yes.
Can I come to your house? Yes, honey, you can come to our house. Can I spend the night there? Yes, you can come spend the night.
Do you have another midwife story?
Okay. Go ahead.
I was trying to think of these different ones that we were told, not to take them. And I was just thinking of different ones of them that where we today can look back and just be so thankful. And you told them about Denise, the girl from up in Washington, that today is very functional, a very happy little mother up there in Washington State. And there's just, and I told them about Joshua. So, there's.
I have a question about the one that kept trying to get to the bathroom and kept running back and forth.
Yes, William.
What were some of the things you folks did to help him to get over?
We
I
had to.
would walk beside him when I knew he was headed for the bathroom, and when he'd stop, I'd say, "William, what are you thinking about? I don't know. I said, well, you were headed to the bathroom. Did you forget that? Oh, no, yeah, no, okay. And he'd go for it. And sometimes I would follow him back. Wait a minute, what are you thinking about? I would just get him to stop, think, and oh yeah, he was in a different world, and he would stop because he'd totally forgotten what he was actually going to do, and I'd have to get him to stop, think about it, and go forward again.
Did he have problems going anywhere else, or was the bathroom seemed to be a problem?
You couldn't give him but one thing to do at a time, and then you had to follow him when he was headed to do it and ask him, what'd you come in here to do? I don't know. Oh, I don't know.
So he got
And you
over
tell him again, and oh yeah, that's what you said. And just consistent without being, never did we say to him that he was stupid or that he didn't know how to remember anything, didn't know how to follow instructions. He'd heard all that enough at home. He didn't need any of that. He needed somebody to help him focus, and he did well.
And we met both of his parents, both of them
yes.
were basket cases. But both of us, whenever we gave Wim something, whichever one of us did it, we had to make sure he followed through. Because that's the only way to make that connection in the brain.
And he did, and he did. He's very connected today.
Very often, if children are sexually abused in the home, a lot of it happens in the bathroom. So he could have just, every time he headed to the bathroom, just totally blocked it, just totally gone.
I'm sure that there was something to that. Of course, at that time, I wasn't even on that wavelength at that time, but
You don't
it
know
just-
unless you've been there,
Yeah.
or unless you've treated people.
I hadn't thought about that part.
We did, Wayne told us a little bit, but we did not, with our children, with whoever we had in our home, we let them tell us what they wanted to tell us. We did not force them to tell us. There was a time and a place. And so we did not push Wham to give us details. We knew some basic things, and we just left it at that. And you have to ask the Lord, what do I do now? Because some of these children got in our home, literally, I'm not exaggerating, it's a mountain of problems. You can't hit a child with all those all at once.
No.
And so you say, Lord, what do I work with first?
Now, where do we start? Because it's a mountain. You have to choose your
And
battles.
so-
So, which one's first?
Yeah, and the Lord would, okay, we're going to work on this one. And you work on this one, and then we get that one dealt with, and you work on the next one. And you just keep going.
I think
That's all you
it's,
can do.
it's extremely difficult when other people are wanting to tell you, well, this child's got this problem, this problem, this problem. What are you doing about that? Hang on, we're working with this. And that was another blessing for us living where we lived. We didn't have to worry about somebody breathing down our neck telling us, what's the matter with your kids? What's going on there? Being out there in the woods, they could make mistakes, they could do dumb things, and we could continue to go forward and allow them to develop. It was not always easy. But you know, the other kids were usually more understanding than adults that we had to deal with.
Yes.
They would tell you, they would laugh about, they had stories about William, stories about Ron, stories about all kinds of different ones, but they were really careful, and they were quite protective, I guess is the word to use, of these different ones when we were out where there were other people that would say things about them.
But tease them mercifully at the house.
Oh.
Those kids play more pranks than one another.
Yes. Don't start on that.
We're missing a whole category of stories here.
William, I just have to, when the guys were staying up in the top of the shed, William, the guys had crowded Williams' bed over to one side, and they would, and of course the roof gets closer as it goes toward the side, and it's a tin roof. The boys would sneak over in the morning, right by William, and they'd yell, "William!" He'd sit straight up, bang, thump. They love to do that to him. And I said, "William, move your bed to the middle." He'd move, and the boys would, in a short time, they'd talked him into being back over at the side again so they could do it to him again. Oh, because it didn't really hurt him that bad. It was just, the tricks they play on one another. That was one, I'd hear it in the house. I'd hear that thump on that tin roof, and I was like, yeah, again. Yeah.
Did you ever go to a hospital like, pretending to be a friend or pretending to be a doula? You know, we had to transport. A friend of ours, like in St. Louis, did that one time and actually ended up slapping the doctor's hand and said she was a doula, you know. And after that, it was all over, you know. One of the nurses saw her doula. You know, like that, right, you know. But she slapped the doctor's hand. Don't do that, you're gonna kill the baby. But did you have that kind of a,
It depends on where it was.
yeah?
With some hospitals, it's not a problem saying you're midwife. With other hospitals, it's a serious problem. And so you quote, go as a friend.
Yeah.
So it really does depend on where you are.
My wife's too serious to ever joke with the doctor about anything like that. Way too serious.
Well, are we out of time, Floyd?
We want to hear a midwife story.
We'd like more
Right now.
stories.
I was just priming the context.
Sorry, I'm blank.
Maybe an angel story?
More stories anytime.
You got a room full of kids, and they aren't going to sleep yet.
We're waiting for a story.
Turn that clock back.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to cancel the study for tonight? If we do, that's fine. I'm asking a question.
She was wanting to look at the 10 virgins, but that's,
It's totally up to you guys. If you don't want to, I have nothing to push, okay? I'm looking at the time. It looks like you all, it's what you all say.
What's everybody want to do?
Story.
Stories.
I don't know, I'd like to hear this 10 virgin study, I think. Is it a choice between 15 more minutes of stories and the 10 virgin story, the 10 virgin study?
We can push supper later, maybe.
Yeah. If we push supper any later, it's going to be breakfast.
oh, I'll tell you one other story that's one that I like to share with the kids, especially the ones that thought they were really good drivers and that was something that, no big deal. They knew how to drive. Floyd told me when he did that, but it was the line kind of I don't remember not driving. Now, I heard somebody say something the other day about being able to remember clear back into diapers. I do too, very vividly. I can go clear back to 1.5 years when our house burned. And I very clearly remember that. I can see the house, the people helping get the stuff out of the house as it was slowly beginning to burn. It was a wiring issue. 2-story, and we lived in the top of it. My dad worked at the popcorn factory, and it was visible from the house, albeit it was probably several miles over there, but this was in Ohio, and it was flat. So I can remember clear back to 1.5 years. My dad would put me on a motorcycle and let me be the one to steer it. And I'll tell you that Harley, I couldn't get my arms far enough apart. It seemed like my head was against the windshield. But I do remember that, and driving my mom's Ford, which I believe was a 50 Ford Coupe. That being said, I found ways to get to drive just when I was 3, after the fire, my dad had left my mom and I. And I was 3. We stayed with my Uncle Clarence, whom I would take, and when he was gone to work, I don't know why, but this Buick sat there in the yard, and I would get in that Buick, crank it up, and of course it started with a button, and you had to, didn't have to have a key, and it was automatic. I would stand on the seat to see out. It tells you how small. And I would have to jump down on the floor, and I would push on the gas pedal, crawl back up on the seat, and stand up there until it stopped moving. Go down, do it again, and I'd run that car all over the yard. And I always tried to make sure it was back right where I'd gotten it, so my uncle wouldn't get upset. I got away with that for a while. 3.
Oh my.
I got away with that for a while, but one day, apparently I didn't get it quite back the same, or my uncle must have began to notice all the tracks in the backyard. I don't know which, but oh, did I get wormed up over that. And, he did something so that I couldn't start the car anymore, and that was the end of my driving that one. We went on, as we moved different places, other experiences, but always something involving driving, and I don't remember not reading either. I could read the names on the cars, knew what they were. In fact, my older brother Bill said that at 2 something that they couldn't stump me on the cars that we were passing on the road as to whether it was Ford, Chevy, Pontiac, or whatever it was. So that's just a little background, a little history. Driving it's just secondary to me. I don't even think about it. And that bothers my wife exceedingly. Because if I'm looking around, she thinks I'm not paying attention to the road. And
Too relaxed.
I'm at home driving. Well, while I was at Laurelbrook, I was down in Floyd. You probably never saw the little car behind the barn, did you? The little yellow one that was sitting there. I was driving this big Chevy wagon, and I wanted something that wasn't a gas hog, and I found out about this little Toyota that was supposed to be for sale down in Pikeville. So I went down, the guy said, yeah, I think he wanted $600 for it, and I was thinking, for a nice little Toyota like that, I'll save that $600 in a year or 2 driving that just with gas. So, and it sounded great, started right up and looked pretty good to me at the time, but I didn't look it over really careful enough. Turned out the car was about 50% Bondo. It had come from up north, apparently. I gave the guy a check for it, and I had Clifton, I think it was, followed me over there in my Chevy wagon and bought the car because it was up the mountain on the side going toward the park, up 30 on that side. And I'm driving it back to the school. Clifton's in front of me. We're headed up the mountain on the Dayton side, and about halfway up the mountain, rounding a curve, there's this boom! And all of a sudden, I can't see out the hood. The hood just buckled in front of me, blocking my view, and it didn't fly up. And then I realized that there was no steering, and where was I going, and what was happening, and I'm like, and I just, Daddy, I don't know what to do. And I'm trying to see out the side window, and I realize I'm looking at trees, all of them, and there's no ground. Those trees go down out of sight. And I closed my eyes and I said, Daddy, I'm really not ready to die. That car turned around in the air. Angels, no question, turned around in the air, and I went back across the road, up the other bank and upside down in the ditch on that side. I wouldn't be as positive about that it turned around in the air, except Clifton came back. He found I wasn't behind him. He got to the top of the mountain, found I wasn't behind him. Turned around, came back down. Wasn't a chain in the car for some reason, but we managed to get the car turned over by hand. It was, like I said, it was a little Toyota, the smallest one Toyota made. And I wasn't hurt, but I couldn't stand up. My legs just wouldn't support me. I knew I was there because God had decided there was still something for me to do. Because in the gravel and through the grass, right off the side of the road to where it dropped off the side to where you're looking out into the tops of those big poplar trees, I believe they were out there, all through that canyon right there. Marks, they went right straight out and off. Well, if they went off there, why is the car over on the other side of the road in the ditch? Clifton was like, whoa. And I told him, I said, something came apart. So we got the car rolled over and we're looking at it, and yeah, the whole strut tower on the one side, the car was so rusty that they had Bondoed all over that and repainted it, and the rust had just given loose, and that spring tower had just, the whole thing turned loose and come up and just buckled the hood up in front of my face. And when it did that, it also had pulled the tie rod off too. And so I didn't have any control over the car. I thought about that a long, long time. I really did. I was like, of course, I looked at cars different when I bought them after that. But I thought, okay, Daddy, you heard my cry that I wasn't ready to die. I know there's things I still need to learn that I need to do. It didn't take him very long after that. Yes, I was a Seventh-day Adventist. Yes, I believed I was a Christian. But no, I could not find a place where I had ever accepted Jesus as my Savior. Where I had actually taken Him into my life. I couldn't find it. And I kept searching for that. But after a while, I set it into the background. Well, then the school chose me to be one of the people to go to Harvard Hills, where I had graduated from academy, to go there as an emissary for our junior worker program to see if we could recruit some students from there. 6 of us went. I don't think you were one of them, were you, Ford?
No, I wasn't even there then.
Okay. I remember who all they were right now, because I was thinking about a whole lot of things. It was really heavy on my mind. But Friday night, they asked me to lead the song service and have the prayer, and there were 3 of the dance students gave their testimony. Sabbath morning, when we had the program, again, I was the song leader and had the prayer, but the other 3 students who were with us gave their testimony. They didn't even ask me to. And it began to bother me. Why didn't they ask me? Well, I knew the answer. I didn't have a testimony. I couldn't tell these kids what these students were sharing about how Jesus had come into their life and how their life had changed. I didn't have it. So since I didn't have that, I spent that Sabbath night. The rest of the kids went to play basketball. I stayed at a friend's home and sat in that chair in the living room wrestling with the Lord. Daddy, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? Why don't I have something to tell them about where you came into my life? And he said, well, you never let me. Well, I pay a faithful tithe. Yeah, but you need to let me in your heart. Well, I try my best to eat right. Now, you understand? I'm serious. This was my conversation. You understand? I want you. Well, I helped teach Sabbath school. No, I want you. This one, I don't know how long this went on. I'm not sure. I just know I gave him every argument I could give him, and I got all I could get. I was silence or the answer, I want you. Well, I said, okay. I know you spared my life for a reason. I know there's something missing. I know I wasn't ready. How do I get ready? I want you. Okay, Dad. I'm yours. When I said that, if you've ever heard anybody describe that warm feeling like honey poured into you or any of those kind of descriptions, I hear it from New Age people. I hear it from other people. But I know what it feels like firsthand. If those people who are getting something that's a wrong spirit feel like that, I can understand why they would feel deceived, why they would believe that that was the real thing for them. It is an experience that I can't, you can't fully describe it. I fell asleep in that chair somewhere in the next moments after that peace came over me. And they threw it, when they came in from playing basketball, they threw a blanket over me and left me there for the night. But from that day forward, my life was different.
Hallelujah.
I had a struggle with the conversations that went on in the van on the way back to Laurelbrook. Because I didn't know how to talk. I was without words to say. I wanted to tell all of them in the van that, hey, I know what you have now. I have it too. Well, I couldn't say anything. I was just stunned, still. For the next month, I was just quiet. I had nothing to say. I knew God had spared my life, and now that if now something happened, it was okay. I was rebaptized that spring. It was April 20. And that time, I went down into the waters knowing why I was there. Not because I believed a set of doctrines, as much as I loved them and as much as they meant and as much as they were steering my life in the right directions. That's what I'd been baptized into at 10. But now at 21, I was baptized into Jesus. And such a difference. That miracle there that God worked for me with that little Toyota, I can still see it as marks on the side of the road, and standing there looking over that bank and thinking, yeah, that could have been just a tangle of yellow metal against one of those bases of one of those trees.
Yep.
With a dead body lost for eternity. But because my daddy loves me and knew I was making decisions that were in the right direction, he was willing to risk that love to save my life and continue to give me the opportunity to develop that life and those decisions into one for him forever. So that's all the angel stories and miracle stories I can handle for one.
Thank you.
Amen.
She says I have to put one more. I don't know if Floyd knows how I even got to Laurelbrook, but the Lord worked. That was one more of those.
How he got to Laurelbrook.
No, I didn't know how you got there.
Laurelbrook is a school, high schooling, school boarding school.
Boarding school. That I was at Margaret Hills. I was working there. I was assistant boys dean. I was teaching auto mechanics. Thoroughly enjoying my time there, and had looked forward to. I was going to get a job with the city of Savannah. I talked with the city officials, and I was going to be taking charge of the water department. I was supposed to come in for my final interview on I believe it was a Monday, and I was to be there at 11 o'clock. Mr. Bob had called me and asked me to come to Laurelbrook. I didn't want to go. It was another one of those where I said, Lord, you're going to have to really kick me because I'm comfortable where I am. I'm looking forward to this good job with the city, and I don't want to go. Unless you just really tell me I have to, I'm not going to go. That morning, I left the house at 9 for a 20-something minute drive to make sure I wasn't late to that 11 o'clock appointment. I just left the school and headed out Lonesome Pine Road. Rounding a corner, here comes another car, completely on my side of the road. What do you do? Well, how many choices do you have? I whipped it into the ditch. The car went on by, didn't stop, didn't slow down. I'm in the ditch. I'm fighting for control. I'll lose the tire. I get it back out of the ditch. And because that tire's gone, I don't have steering control. I just crossed the road and went into the ditch on the other side, ran up into a tree and stopped. I didn't have my seatbelt on. First time I could think of, I was sitting there thinking, how stupid could I be? That's the reason I didn't really have control of the car. So when I went in the ditch, I slid out from behind the wheel. I'm still hanging on to it, but I'm on the other side of the car. It had a bench seat, which were rare these days. I know that one did. And so now I'm sitting there thinking, wow, now what? But in the back of my mind, I'm rebelling because I still think, no, I don't want to go to Laurelbrook. No. Somebody will come along, I'll get a ride into town. This is not going to stop me. I've still got time. I got out of the car and realized I couldn't walk. My knee, I banged it against the steering column so hard, it was already swollen up about twice the size. My elbow was swelling, where I caught it in the wheel in the process of the whipping around. And my arm just, it hurt so bad, I decided it must be broken. And I'm standing there in the road. Come on, somebody's got to come. I stood there till I couldn't stand there anymore. I sat on the hood of the car for a while, couldn't sit there anymore. I finally decided it was when it hit 20 to 11, I was in a panic. Didn't know what to do. I'd been there for over an hour. Nobody had come by at all. And that was so unusual for that road. I mean, there was a nursing home. It was traffic all the time, all day long. Nobody. I started trying to walk. I'm dragging this one leg. It's terrible. Sometimes I just get down and crawl for a little bit.
Were the police having to manage all that traffic backed up?
I don't know what they were. I don't know what was going on. Angels there too. Somebody was stopping the traffic. I hobbled all the way back up around the corners and back to over the hill to the school. By that time, it was afternoon. By the time I got to school, I wasn't even a mile, but it took me well over an hour to walk that mile. Everybody I'd see, they were like, "Oh, hi," and they'd go right on. They wouldn't listen. Hey! They wouldn't pay me any attention. And I was like, why doesn't anybody hear me and see that I need some help? Don't they go, yeah, I don't walk around, I drive my car. Can't they see that? What's going on? Nobody helped me. I finally got to a phone and tried to call. Well, the guy, the appointment, I wasn't there, so they assumed I didn't want the job, and the next candidate in line got it. First I was angry. I was very angry when I figured out that the car that had run me off the road was sitting right there at the boys' dorm. Oh. I found that person and I told them what I thought about him, what they'd done, and they were like, I said, why didn't you stop at least? No, they told me I couldn't do anything. And this didn't happen because if I have another incident, they'll cancel my insurance. Don't talk to me. Okay. So I said, all right, Lord, Daddy, now we're in trouble. I can't work. I have already terminated my job with the school. I didn't get the one with the city. I don't have a car. And you still want me to go to Laurelbrook, don't you? Yeah. All right, I don't know what you're going to do about it, but now I can't do anything. I can't go to Laurelbrook. I got somebody finally to take me to my trailer, and I lived in a little camper trailer. They took me in a trailer. Somebody had gotten my mail for me and they laid it on my table inside the door. I sat down there. My knee swelling was going down a little bit. My arm I figured out I wasn't going to the doctor. It wasn't broken. I didn't care. I put a sling on it, which I made one, and I did that. I'm sitting there opening my mail, and in it was a check from somebody that I hadn't seen in years who owed me, said they owed me some money. Well, it was about $200. So I got somebody to take me to my car, and we took off the 2 tires that were flat. And I found that the fan had gone through the radiator, so we pulled the radiator out of it. The motor mounts were broken. We took the mounts off and went to town, got the tires fixed, bought new mounts, went hunting for a radiator. Nobody had one, and I couldn't afford a new one. Didn't have any. I just had this $200, and I'd already spent, I don't know how much on those tires and mounts. But then went to a radiator shop, and this guy says, you know what? He says, sitting back here, there's a radiator for an old Chevy back here. He says, been here for a long time. Let me recheck it. If it's any good, I'll sell it to you. Well, it was, and he did. I came back the next day, and I got that, and put that in, and got my car all back together, and I had just enough money left after that to fill the tank on the car with gas. I did, and I hooked up to my little trailer, and I said, okay, Daddy, I don't know what else to do but go to the world. And I've done everything, and you provided the money, and I said, I guess I'm good. That tank of gas got me all the way from Harvard Hills to Laurelbrook, which normally wouldn't have, but it was all I had. I put all my money in the gas tank. So I got to Laurelbrook with nothing.
He makes gas, you know.
He probably does. But I got there because God said to do it in spite of my objections. And he also protected this foolish boy who hadn't fasten his seatbelt. I always wore my seatbelt. In fact, that car had one, didn't come with one from the factory. I had put them in it. So why I didn't have it on that day is, it's just one of those things that you have to look back and say, huh.
Well, at least you didn't spend 3 days in a fish. Just several days stewing over all of the situation, not wanting to go there. So, yes, God has worked many times in my life, and He continues to work in our lives as we continue to try to minister to people who need to know God loves them, cares about them, and in spite of what other people say, there is hope and healing in just learning to know Him and hear His voice and follow what He asks us to do. So, let's have a prayer, and these ladies can go at the feet. Father in heaven, again, I just thank You for being our Father, caring about us in so many ways. Sometimes to our way of looking, it's very difficult, the things we have to deal with, and difficult to see in it Your love, perhaps at the time. But when we see in the long run how the big picture of what You have for us, the future that we can't even begin to know or understand at the time, Father, we just thank You for this. Thank You for leading, for having a plan for each of us. And I just pray that each one here listens carefully to Your voice as You speak to them, whatever means that You're able to do that. And that they listen and do what You ask them to do. So that each one of us can be ready, that we can all be together again someday. Father, we look forward to that. In Jesus' name.